All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the founder of the Institute for Excellence in Sales. And John, we're changing that to the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. More to be found on our new website. This is a special episode. It's a sales story and a tip episode. You can find today's show up on YouTube. You could also go to the Sales Game Changers podcast.com website to read the complete transcription and to listen to the show. Again, John, we've transcribed over 750 Sales Game Changers podcast episodes. You can find today's show, salesgamechangerspodcast.com/John Jumento. And John, I'm excited to talk to you. You're with Juniper. We've had some of your leaders on the show way back in the past when we actually, believe it or not, we used to do these shows in person. I would zip around the East Coast interviewing sales leaders. Of course, we had the great Bob Dunn on the show a long time ago. I know you had some history with him, but again, you could read all the complete shows. Again, our book, Insights for Sales Game Changers, is available up on Amazon. If you'd like signed copies, reach out to me. All right, John, I'm excited to hear your story. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about you that we need to know.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Fred. So my name is John Jumento. I've lived in the DMV since late 1999. I've been in the industry for about 25 plus years. And today I manage what we call the Federal Systems Integrated Group at Juniper, falling under the federal division, within that group. So.
All right. I'm excited to hear more about your story. So John Jumento, tell us a great sales story.
Absolutely. So I started at Juniper roughly about 3 years ago. The team that I developed did not exist. So I brought a whole new crew of AMs all within the first year, so 6 in total. And there was one particular AM that I'd like to highlight, and that's what the story is going to be about. It was a gentleman who primarily focused more on the commercial side of business, right? He had sold more in commercial sales, insurance companies, healthcare institutes, that kind of thing. He recently came from a job where he was managing reseller channel relationships, but wanted to get back into sales because he decided that that's what he really wanted to do. So when I hired him, I kind of brought him in with the understanding that, he's got a good foundational knowledge. He understands how to sell. He has that intrinsic motivation. But unfortunately, one of the things that I saw was, some of the lack of experience in the type of customers that he would be dealing with here. So that kind of segues into my story, right? So he got into a customer that traditionally was very tough for us to get into, did a great job meeting the right people, having the right conversations, where about 6 months in, he's like, John, I really need help kind of circling the wagons here, making sure that I'm only talking to a few people. Let's talk to the executives. Let's talk to all the different BUs. Let's talk to compliance. Let's talk to procurement. Did a really great job really mapping out his strategy and kind of going through all the different communities of interest. So fast forward 12 months later, we start talking about budget, which is a great thing, right, with customers. And we're talking about, a strategic project that's going to happen the following year. Right, come to about 18 months now, they have a problem with the incurred investment they made in Juniper probably 2 years prior to us being involved. And it was a significant product quality issue, right? So as you can imagine, with all these great relationships that he built up, there's a lot of credibility, both north, south, east, west within the organization. So now it turns into one of these situations where it's kind of like, okay, sales is sales, right? But now we're running into, kind of like a customer satisfaction kind of issue. And the deal that he had on the table was a deal that would double his annual quota. So obviously he was very nervous, right? So in working with him, we were kind of like, okay, so John, what do we do, right? And I said, well, traditionally, one of the things that I do in a case like this, and something we should always kind of aspire to do, is we should show up, and we should show up in a way that differentiates us from any other competitor out there. So naturally, the next question is, well, how do we do that, right? Well, along with all the people and all the relationships we've built, right? Let's not just have you and I show up, okay? So it's your engineering resources, it's our product leadership, it's our executives, it's my boss. Having the relevant conversations with the relevant people within the organization, and reassure them, right? We've identified the problem. We're going to fix it. And any risk that you're looking at as a result of this product quality issue, we will help you mitigate it all the way to the end, right? So fast forward a little bit, we went ahead and connected all the different people within the organization. So my boss, we got product leadership connected with their InfoSec security folks who had some questions about it. Their engineering leadership, which is basically holding like the purse strings to actually approve an additional purchase. And we answered their questions and kind of said, hey, look, we've identified this problem as this is a quality problem with some of our mechanisms and equipment, some of the suppliers that we deal with. Let us just go ahead and replace this. No questions asked. Let's just go in. Let's figure out how to, replace all this bad equipment. It was a couple hundred pieces of equipment across 2 different geographies. So it was pretty substantial, right? So we agreed to flip the bill. We shipped everything out. We provided on-site resources. We even paid a third party to come on site and figure out if there are any dependencies that were even outside of what could be, but even in the realm of possibility. We flipped the bill. We made sure their executives knew it, made sure the team we worked with it. We made sure all their BUs knew that we came in there, right? And not only do we help them fix the problem, but we always made sure there wasn't another problem causing it, right? So at the very end of this, right, I'm very happy to report that we still got that very large deal, which was fantastic, right? We've got tremendous kudos from both their executive leadership and engineering, literally stating that, hey, it's like, hey, no other vendor has come in here and fixed a problem like you guys did as soon as we identified it. And in a lot of cases, they've said, a lot of other vendors, they come in, they say, well, maybe you did this, maybe you did that. Nope, you guys came in, you helped us identify the problem, you went and fixed it expediently, and there is no other vendor we would love to do business with than you guys. So I tell that story going into my tip, right? A lot of sales enablement organizations and a lot of sales leaders talk about sales differentiation. They're talking about a product, they're talking about whatever they're selling with a service. My story, the account team is the differentiator and the customer service you bring to the table when you work with customers. And it's really based on 3 things: values, actions, and empathy, right? Value comes from what we talked about in the story, is really understanding why they're working with us in the first place and what prompted them for us to come in and what value we establish with them, right? It all comes out as a good conversation and relationship building, right? Getting to all the different communities of interest and being able to repeat back, hey, we're providing you this service, we're providing this product, but we're also an OEM that's like, I'll let you fail. And here's why, right? We take specific actions like we talked about with, developing long-term agreements to make things like mutually beneficial from a cost, from a maintenance perspective. Executive roundtables we put together to connect their peers with our peers at Juniper so they understand, kind of how we work as a business, in addition to industry peers, right? So in public sector, there are a lot of customers that mimic a lot of commercial industry, right? So there are like organizations that do industrial manufacturing. There are like industries that take care of healthcare, right? So we're quantifying that value to the customer outside our product or service to show what kind of value we provide, and that's our differentiation, right? And then obviously at the very end, I coach my folks in really understanding that empathy, right? So understanding that empathy is understanding your customer, what is successful to them, what does success mean to their leadership, and what does success mean to their overall organization. So in conclusion, right, my big sales tip is sales differentiation is your account team, how you show up, and the customer service you provide.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that story. So frequent listeners of the Sales Game Changers podcast will know that 2 of the most commonly uttered words from my sales leader guests are empathy and value. Matter of fact, everything comes down to showing your customer more value. And at the end of the day, everything is about execution, taking the right actions. I want to follow up on one thing you talked about, which could be a lesson for a lot of the junior salespeople. We have a lot of people who were in the first 10 years of sales, and a lot of them think they have to go at it themselves. Right. You know, they have to be the hero. They have to know everything. They have to know all this. But when you work for a company, I mean, obviously Juniper's a large company, but mid-sized company, there's resources, right? You know, there's people, there's even sometimes I've actually brought customers to
Yep.
deals for new customers to talk about the relationship and the success. So, you know, I found that a lot of the top sales performers who grow their careers are the ones that can tap into places. And a lot of times when I'm coaching young sales professionals, I'll say, get to know finance, get to know logistics, get to know operations, because they'll help you become a more complete sales professional.
Correct. 100% agree. As a matter of fact, I'll add to what you just said, Fred. Um, those folks, when I talked about empathy and relationship building with customers, they do just as good a job, if not better, internally. And they know how important those functions are to their business because of the way they can support their customer. So, you know, in that same vein, we were talking about training, reps who are in their first 10 years. That's a lot of what I notice when we talk about, sales training and stuff like that, isn't really communicated as much, right? So like when I was a rep, I would have loved a sales leader to focus just on that and say, this is really important, because it wasn't as obvious to me that I really need to master that in order to be able to support my customer adequately.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other thing, obviously showing up, right? And, uh, just being there. I mean, a lot of people know that sales is about, I like to say, the next call, right? The next interaction. You're constantly going to the next interaction and the next interaction and the next interaction. And every time that you get a communication or an opportunity to be with a customer, that's a win, right? You know, you're continuing even relationships that you've had for 15, 20 years in some cases, again, in public sector. A lot of times the customer has been at the same job or agency, for decades sometimes. But so showing up is such a critical piece. Can you over show up? Is there like a risk with trying too hard to show up?
I think there's a risk with showing up in a certain way too much,
Hmm.
but showing up, no, I absolutely don't. If anything, you you show how important you think the customer is to you, right?
Yes.
Your business. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, even today, Fred, I mean, I have customers who've since moved on from the organizations they work for. They still keep in contact with me because
Yeah.
all of my junior reps, I tell this and I said, hey, look, I know you want to get a sale. I know there's pressure, to get through a quota number, that kind of stuff. But at some point, you're going to have to make a decision, right? You do right by your customer. I promise you, that stuff will come, and I'll help you navigate that. But you don't do well to a customer. If you want to stay working in this industry, even after you leave this organization, let me tell you something, they will remember. It won't be the organization they remember, it'll be you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's your value that you carry around with you as a sales professional as you continue your career.
Yeah. Now we like to tell people you are the CEO of your own career and think of it long term, et cetera. All right. Once again, salesgamechangerspodcast.com/John Gimento to read the complete transcript. John, thanks for being on the show. My name is Fred Diamond. This is the Sales Game Changers Podcast.